Welcome back to the Macro Golf YouTube channel. So today, I'm down here with Jack down at Cultural Park, and he's going to take me through a session helping me with distance control with my wedges. So we've done a little bit of speed work, which means that hopefully next season, I'm going to have more of these in my hands.
Yes,
on
exactly
par
the
fours.
point.
So we better get these good. Right?
Yes.
These distance control is going to be absolutely key with these things. So today we're going to show you an insight into a lesson for me on managing distance control with the wedges. So Jack, what have you got in store for me today? What am I doing?
Okay, so I like to think a better player will always have a system, right? So not every good player is going to be super regimented in their sense of, you know, this swing goes this far, but they'll always have a feel and a general idea of how far a shot goes, right? And it's super crucial. One, it gains so much confidence in that number. So say you have 79 yard or something really people don't like a 55-yard golf shot. A better player won't fear that because they have so much confidence that they've done it loads and loads and loads of times. They have the exact shot for that scenario, right? And it's a crucial way of really managing your game because all of a sudden you've got all these shots. You might have two different shots from there. And you've got different options all of a sudden. And if you've, like you said, we've done some speed stuff. If you start getting it closer to the hole, you're going to have a lot of these wedges in your hand. If we want to optimize your scoring, these needs to be money. True.
And when you're talking about having a system, are we having some way of combining feel with that system? Are you more leaning straight towards system and get rid of feel? Where are we on that benchmark? Because I would definitely say that at the moment for me, I've got a bit of an idea of maybe I would never hit them full, but I've got an idea of what my stock wedge would be with each, and then maybe I've got a variation of that, maybe one off each one, and then the rest of it is definitely feel.
Yeah, you're going to have more than most as well. Okay. Right? So the average golfer watching this probably isn't going to have much. They might have their stock number. That'll be about it, I would have thought, and then they'll work off that, and they might try and find a way of taking some speed off that. But overall, they won't have a whole lot of other numbers other than their stock. So we need to find a way to find other numbers and some way to make it repeatable. There are loads of different systems which players will take and coaches will teach. And the simple matter of the fact is it's finding the right one for the right player. So a lot of players use a thing called a clock face system, and they'll use things like, for example, they'll swing back to 8 o'clock and down to 4 o'clock, right? So it's, as you can imagine, on the clock face, and they can go from 9 till 3 o'clock. And these will produce different distances, trying to maintain the same sort of speed, but again we're changing our hand path and the arc and the length of the arc, and that's what changes the speed. So that's a great way, and it's a very reliable way, and it's a super common way of people having a system, and I quite like that one. And you know, I personally don't use the clock face system, but I obviously use a variant of it, you know, and I'll feel myself. I basically say left bicep to chest and then right bicep to chest. That's my way of saying that. And that's not everyone's feel, but that's the way it relates in my brain. I can make it repeatable. And then I have a certain number with my 58, 54, and a 50 degree. And I know how far each one of those go.
Okay. So how am I going to do that?
We're gonna test it, right? So we're going to go your lob wedge or sand wedge first. Okay, so 58 degree, is it?
Yeah, so 58 degree first.
Okay. So we'll go 58 degree, and I'm not going to put a target out there because I don't want him to try and hit target. All I want you to do is try to basically go 9 to 3 or whatever that might feel like. So you're trying to get some sort of system where you can repeat it. So whether it goes left bicep to your chest, that's a common one for me. It's up to you really how you want to feel it.
So you want me to first feel what that type of thing would, and then we'll get an idea of what that distance is, right?
And one of the big keys of this is trying to keep consistent speed. Remember, we're not trying to hit the flat out shot here. We're trying to get consistency. I always like players to feel a little bit lighter in the grip with these sort of shots, just to, again, keep the same consistency, have a consistent grip pressure, do that. That really helps to not add too much force on the top of the swing.
Interesting. So already I feel a bit weird over this because I would much rather if you given me a number and say, hit that number. So already I'm thinking,
it's weird.
I don't know what I don't know what's going to happen, but that's
all part of the process. That does become further down the line. You do start doing that.
Any change with ball position?
No, ball position is good. Like center's nice for you. Obviously I've seen you play a lot. So I'm going to get Joe to do about 4 more of these, and then we're going to have a nice average number at the end of this.
So that felt, as far as I know, that felt like...
Yeah, just try to reproduce that exact speed and swing and feel. Nice. So we'll take an average of those 5 shots.
Yep.
And we'll work on that 1 sec. Okay, so you average 64 yards for them shots there. So that would kind of be your baseline number, right? You might refine a few feels, and then you might go and retest it. But for now, the feels you're creating with that shot, that's 64 yards, right?
Fine.
Okay, so now you're going to move up a little bit, and you're going to create a slightly longer arc. So however that might feel. So in the same way you would create a 10 to 2 position in a clock face, so 10 to 2.
Yep.
You're going to try to recreate that now.
So how many of these are we going to get? Because that'll give me an idea of like how much room I've got to go.
Yeah,
right?
So for me, I always like, so 10 to 2, I don't tend to go much further than that. So my stock is like, let's say...
So this might be a stock.
This is probably just under stock.
Okay, fine.
So yeah, I like this one to still be a number and then stock to be a little bit further again. Okay, just more numbers.
Cool.
I think a big key with this is to make sure you're not feeling like you're accelerating too much.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where a lot of people go wrong. They almost feel too short, and then they decide to accelerate on the way through. So then you're just gaining speed for the sake of gaining speed, which is not necessary. Very good. Very good. And what you might find in this sort of stuff, if you, for example, a player who can hit 81 yards consistently, that might be your favorite number, and you might be able to score well from that, right? Very good. So
round about the same number. I think.
Same number pretty much the whole way through. So we averaged around 81 yards there. So if you were to take from those 5 balls, you would say 81 yards is my number for those golf shots, right? Okay. So now you've got a couple of numbers, and now I would just say hit a stock one. You're not trying to hit anything too crazy. You're just hitting what you'd call a full golf shot. Good. You can see how they progress in like 10-yard increments sort of range. As long as you're keeping speed consistent throughout and you're not adding too much force, it's very consistent in the amount of speed that goes up. Nice. Nice.
Cool.
So you know, we have a really good group of balls there. We're looking at, you know, they're tight. So it's 90 yards, right? You pretty much pitch 4 balls on 90 yards there. So that is quite easy to see. That is your stock number, which is great to know, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, the stock number is going to have a different flight as well, which is always worth noting. It's going to have a different spin rate. It's going to stop slightly differently. So, for example, as we move up the club, and we might find the pitching wedge goes 90-yard carry too, but you might find the pitching wedge doesn't stop quite as fast. That has a little bit more stopping power with flight, so it has a certain time you might want to use it. A front pin, for example, in hard conditions, that might be the shot to use it. As we move up and we find 90 yards, I don't know, maybe with our 10 to 2 shot, it might not be that, but it might be that. We might find that goes 90 yards, but it's going to have a bit more release. It's going to have a little bit less land angle coming down. So it might not stop in the way we want it to go, and that might suit a back pin a little bit more. So all of a sudden we have these variants of shots that are a little bit more useful. Yeah.
So same test for the other 2 clubs?
Correct.
Perfect.
Just say 9 to 3, swing, don't think about it. Very good. Very good. And interestingly, you're not a player that does this, right? You're not a player that necessarily thinks, but you don't often hit 105 free shots in a row, right? If I asked you to do that, you might struggle to do it.
It's true.
You're right. So there is a lot of help in this, right? And I'm a big feely guy. I like feel in when I play and stuff. But if you want to have good feel, sometimes having a system helps to gain better feel, right? So you are still having feel. Like this hasn't eradicated all your feel, right? Like Bryson, for example, has a lot of systems, but those systems just help him gain feel, right? That's all they do. They don't make him robotic like people say. He's a super feely guy. He just has all these feels that allow him.
I'm still having to feel what that is. I'm still having to feel what that is.
It's not a robotic move.
I'm trying to get into what that feels
like.
Definitely.
What does 100 yards feel like? It feels whatever. You might say just under a stock 54 degree, right?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Same again.
Half.
So half and half. That's all you're trying to feel. Nice. Good strike there.
That felt so fucking good.
Very nice. So, last ball coming down. Perfect. So you've got yourself 3 clubs now with a bunch of different systems. So 3 different shots of each club.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden you've got something other than just stock, something other than just half. You've got something in between. You can go further with this as well. I mean, I play with some guys who have some pretty long wedge graphs.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't go that far because I personally can't feel really small increments.
Yeah, that felt comfortable to me. Like I was worried that moving to the second one was going to feel too close to the stock one.
Yes.
Stock one, but there still was some extra,
a little bit of extra
space.
100%.
We still saw around 10 yards.
Yeah, it's amazing the little difference it makes. But in your brain, you can just about feel what the difference is. That it creates a different speed.
Yeah,
it. Like I say, and just try not to change the speed too much. Try not to change the acceleration pattern too much.
Yeah,
that's a big key with this. Like if you're just accelerating as fast as you can, you might find some discrepancies in your distances. If you can sort of keep the same flow and motion with all these, you can find some really good patterns start to build up. And you've got yourself a nice little wedge chart now, which you'll be able to use on a golf course.
Yeah, I think the key for me was just still committing to those shorter shots. So just not dying out on them and, just actually making sure I still
definitely
kept
100%.
It's fairly aggressive down towards the ball, but not, not getting choppy and getting, too stabbing. So just nice bit of tempo, but still being aggressive down through the ball, I think was key with the short lines.
Real good.
So we've got some ideas now with the numbers, which is useful. How do we then work between these? Is there going to be a case of needing to work between these numbers? How do we do that? Can we do that through gripping down? Is that still a thing? Are we going to do that
that's still a thing, yeah.
Softness? Are we going to do this what other options do we have?
So I think a lot of this comes through testing. So once you have your little grid and your little system that you're going to use, where you go 54, 58, all those numbers, and you get this little system, the best way then is to randomize. And so this is what I'd call our block practice. This is where we get our numbers and we start to really understand what's going on. And then we randomize our practice. And I'll just chuck a random number, you like 72 yards. And you'll go down your grid and you'll try to feel what 72. So you might say, okay, I have a 9 till 3 that goes 70 yards.
Yeah.
So you're a couple of yards off that. So you're going to try and feel something that goes in with a little bit more speed. Now, how you do that is up to you. You might feel like it literally just travels an inch further and you'll be amazed at the difference that can make.
Yeah.
You can, if it was a little bit too far, you could absolutely go down the grip on it a little bit. And actually, so instead of gripping in your normal spot, you might just give up a couple of inches on the shaft and experiment with how far that drops down the distance. And that's a nice little tool as well.
And how far down the bag would you go with this? Obviously, I've got a pitching wedge here, so we're finished off with. So how far down the bag could you take?
That's a good question. I personally, I have mine up to a 9 iron, and then from there, I basically have 2 shots with each iron going up. So I'll have sort of a 3/4 swing, I like to call it. It's not really a free, it doesn't look that different, but the speed drops down just enough for me to have a discrepancy in distance. Whereas a 9 iron still has a good flight and a good enough flight for me to swing at a 9 to 3 distance, and it makes sense, right? Whereas it just doesn't really make the spin starts to decline a little bit too much with a 6 iron, which is a good shot in an in-to-win links golf course. You might use that shot, but maybe it's not something that's quite as measured.
Perfect. So obviously I've got my grid, take the grid away, and then how often would you recommend retesting this or checking in on this?
Yeah. Throughout the season, you're going to have different changes in golf swing. You're going to have changes in stuff you do for you guys, where you're going to get stronger. You're going to get more mobile. That's going to add to distance. That's going to add to, club head speed. And they're things you're going to have to measure and retest for. I would definitely keep on top of this as much as you possibly can. If you're a professional golfer watching this, you should be doing it all the time.
Yeah.
It's one of the most important things you could be doing. Don't underestimate how important this is. You'll see professional golfers with a TrackMan or Foresight beside them, and they're measuring every single range session they go to, whether it's a randomized practice or whether they're just simply retesting. They're constantly on top of their numbers. Dustin Johnson spoke about when he was in world #1, speaking about how he wouldn't have a range session without a TrackMan behind him. It was crucial for his practice to know his numbers. He had to know, and that's why he became one of the best wedge players in the world, because he was dead certain of what he was doing.
It's true, and then I suppose for people that don't have access to this, just going to the driving range and going through those fields and just getting an idea. A lot of ranges now have some kind of distance markers you can use. Range balls obviously a little bit different, but just maybe just working on grouping of those in the time is going to help. And then when they can test the actual number, that's going to be
Listen, it's not as easy if you don't have a system, and I understand that the majority don't. But if you can work on your feels and try to work on the tempo, that's a super big way of really working on it. And just, I don't know, maybe try to book into, there's lots of these sort of places now, and we're very lucky at Kotra Resort to have 4 of them, where you can go and test, and you can really sort of just keep on top of what's going on, and try and do it
even
once
golf
a
course,
month.
right? Some golf courses would let you do it. Some if you can get out on the golf course,
100%.
You can test some distances.
You can walk out and go check it, right?
You can walk around and go check it. So I think there's always options of being able to do this stuff and just keeping on top of it is great. But that was super useful to me. I'm going to take these numbers. I've needed these numbers. This is perfect for me. And Jack, thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Cheers, Alan.
See you guys on the next video.